back to Demigod Debut. I'm Mal, longtime Percy Jackson fan.
And I'm Julie, Percy Jackson amateur.
And this is a podcast where Julie reads The Titan's Curse for the first time, and we are joined this week by my friend Hannah, who I met on a trip to Greece last summer. So she dealt with me at my most annoying, just making Percy Jackson references all the time. And yet, she still decided to be my friend when we got back to the States. So, hello, Hannah.
Hi.
So, tell us about your Demigod debut. Like, how did you get into Percy Jackson?
I read the books in middle school for the first time. Me and my sister read them together, and she was very heavily into them. And I did read the full series, but I was never like super obsessed or anything. And then like the movie was a flop, and so just kind of, always appreciated from afar. But then we got the series, so I am back and enjoying the ride.
Fantastic. I know for today you are extra prepared because I did call you this weekend and read these 3 chapters to you out loud. So
She did, in fact.
You got your own personal audiobook from me.
Yes, I did.
So, Julie, sorry that your work reading was likely not as much fun as that.
I'm barely finished. It's been crazy. It was like 3:30 and I was like, I have not finished reading this yet.
Are you eating watermelon?
Mhm.
I thought you hated melons.
Watermelon is a whole different kind of thing, whole different animal.
I think the whole point is watermelon is not an animal, but
I'm gonna leave this call right now, Mel.
Anyway. I don't know, just interesting after you were giving melons hate a couple weeks ago.
Every other melon, disgusting. Honeydew, cantaloupe.
No, honeydew is the best. Okay.
Ew, it doesn't taste like anything.
It tastes like honeydew.
I agree with that. Cantaloupe is really good, though, if you get a ripe one.
If you get a good honeydew, nothing tops it. It's so good.
No.
I'm doing this episode by myself. You're both canceled.
You're the one who has the unpopular take, Mal. You're outnumbered.
True, but who's gonna edit this podcast? Me. So I can do what I want.
Yeah, you can. I'm not gonna edit it.
Anyway. So chapter 9 was I Learn How to Grow Zombies. So, Percy is following the camp van on Blackjack. It is a thrilling high-speed chase through Manhattan in which they land on the Chrysler Building because, we gotta get another iconic New York landmark involved in some way. And an interesting thing to me is that, every single cover of The Titan's Curse that I can think of or own has, Blackjack prominently featured on it in some way. Even the purple, the UK cover in the PDF we've been using, that one also has Blackjack. I don't know, it's just because it's such a small little bit of this book, the writing on Blackjack, but it's interesting that the covers choose to focus on that. I don't know, just an observation. Anyway, Blackjack, Chrysler Building. Mr. D traps them in some grapevines. He's very annoyed that people and horses keep calling him the wine dude, and he's also just generally annoyed with heroes and tells Percy about Ariadne, who helped Theseus get through the labyrinth, only for him to leave her. Because turns out, Ariadne is Mr. D's wife now.
He's not a wife guy.
He is not a wife guy. But he feels like he's really trying to pretend to be a wife guy in this scene.
Imposter.
He's like, I hate heroes because my wife was done dirty by a hero. I'm like, no, you hate heroes because you're stuck at this camp against your will.
He's a fake wife guy like Ned Fulmer from the Try Guys. Fake wife guy.
Yikes.
Wading into the discourse. Like a year later.
So then Mr. D gives kind of a final scathing review of heroes, saying that they're all selfish and ungrateful, using whoever they have to and then betraying them. He says, ask Ariadne, Medea, or Zoe Nightshade. Then he lets Percy go, saying that it sounds like some people are going to die on this quest and maybe he'll get lucky and Percy will be one of them. And then he just leaves. This man is truly living up to his role as the god of theater. This was so dramatic.
He's rude.
Yeah, what was, I fully believe that the reason he did this was purely just to get in Percy's head.
I could see that.
He's just beefing with a 14-year-old. Because as Percy flies away, he's like, I would have been less worried if Mr. D had just dragged me back to camp. Honestly, I think Mr. D just did it to, kind of scare him a little. Get in his head so that maybe he dies on this quest.
Yeah, psych him out.
So then Percy says that Zoe's driving south like a crazy person, and they don't stop again until Maryland. And he's really working this horse. Like, Blackjack asked him to stop for donuts, but they don't have time to stop for donuts. Somebody needs to call the ASPCA, because, fun fact, did you know that the ASPCA was started to protect workhorses in New York City in the 1860s? Because it was. I learned that.
Did not know that.
And now they just make sad dog commercials.
In the arms of an angel.
I mean, that's not all they do.
Yeah.
Like, the ASPCA does great work, but they're best known for their sad dog commercials.
True.
Once he finally gets off Blackjack, Percy goes to Scout, and he says, I put on my invisibility cap. Like, sir, your invisibility cap? Wrong. That is Annabeth's invisibility cap, and no, just stop. Because he does it twice in these chapters, that he's like, I put on my invisibility cap. I'm like, this is Annabeth erasure, and I will not stand for it. I will not stand for it. But it is very funny, though, the way he's like, it's hard to remember that I don't have to sneak because I'm invisible. So, like, he's just invisible sneaking around. Funny. So he ends up running right into the quest group, and Grover has apparently done some tracking spell that says they need to go to DC. Thalia and Zoë are, of course, fighting. Zoë calls her a scullion, which I did look up. It means a servant assigned to the most menial of kitchen tasks. So, an excellent insult, I think.
She basically said, you're a dishwasher. Like,
they also argue about which of them should be driving. Thalia says she looks closer to 16 than Zoë, but Zoë says she's been driving since automobiles were invented. Wild. Also, Thalia, we were all there for your attempt at driving a couple chapters ago. Maybe Zoë handling this one is best. And that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Then Blackjack drops Percy off in DC. Percy sends him off back to camp. And, you know, if he flew him all the way to DC, he probably deserves his spot on the cover. Percy doesn't even get him a donut in payment, like, even when they get to DC. I know he doesn't have a whole lot of time, but maybe Mr. D is right about heroes, because he's really using whoever he has to, and then betraying them.
He's trying to save Annabeth. Come on.
Yeah, but I don't think Annabeth would want you to save her at the expense of the people and creatures that helped you.
Fake lover.
Just watch. Just watch. When he finds her, the first thing she's gonna ask is, did you take care of Blackjack? Did you get Blackjack a donut? No.
For some reason, I don't think she's gonna ask that. If I had to bet. I was a betting man.
She could. You don't know.
You're right, I don't, but...
Then Percy is about to follow the quest group, but he notices Dr. Thorne get out of a car and say something into a phone. And it ends up working out because Thorne is also following the quest group, so Percy kind of follows both at the same time. And he notes that if Thorne managed to survive, then that is confirmation that his dreams about Annabeth must have been true, and she must also be alive, so yay for that. Then the quest gang goes into the Air and Space Museum, but Thorne turns and goes to the Natural History Museum instead, so Percy ends up following him. And in the museum, there are several mortal guards, and two, I'm gonna try to pronounce this, Scythian Dracanae, I guess, which are like snake women. And Percy says he learns the name of these from Annabeth. And this mention of Annabeth got me wondering. So here I'm going to explain the math that I teased to you both, like, on Snapchat. So feel free to tune me out because it's silly. So I wanted to know, like, just how many times he mentions Annabeth in this book, because she's really living rent-free in his head. And I wanted to know, like, how does it compare to the other books? So I did some math, and here are some findings. So I did have to go through and count every time that Annabeth's name is mentioned. I just did, like, a Control F thing in my ebooks, but I still had to, like, count each one that popped up because it wouldn't give me an accurate number. So if this is inaccurate, it is because I cannot count. So here's Annabeth in The Lightning Thief is said 407 times, and the book has like 87,000 words. So Annabeth's name is 0.47% of all the words in The Lightning Thief, for an average of 1.08 Annabeths per page. We also don't meet Annabeth until like chapter 5 or 6, so like decent number of Annabeths. Then in Sea of Monsters, Annabeth is said 50 more times than that, so like 457 times. And there's only 63,000 words in Sea of Monsters, making Annabeth 0.71% of words in the book, or 1.68 Annabeths per page. And then in Titan's Curse, there's like half as many Annabeths, kind of as expected, but she is mentioned 217 times out of about 73,000 words, or 0.3%, or an average of 0.7 Annabeths per page. And also, to kind of contextualize this, I did also do Grover in Sea of Monsters, because he's missing in that one. And so Grover is mentioned 164 times in Sea of Monsters, and is 0.25% of words, or 0.59 Grovers per page. So we are getting more Annabeths than we did Grovers. This has been Mal's Math Corner. Percy Jackson is very down bad for Annabeth Chase.
You have way too much time on your hands.
Yes. All right, so there's my math. Then, chillin' with the Snake Woman, we also have Luke, who Percy is very quick to tell us does not look like his usual hot supervillain self. He apparently looks like he's aged 10 years in just a few months, which is in fact what happens when you choose evil. Let this be a warning.
I don't know. I think of hot evil people that can contradict that.
Some evil people are hot. That is true.
Anyway.
Then I'm a little obsessed with the way that the third guy is described here, like sitting in shadow on this throne. All you can see are his knuckles. He's got a voice like as if the earth itself is talking and fills the whole room like this is a villain.
Like a James Bond villain.
I'm here for it.
I want him to have a cat on his lap.
Well, and see, he could have a cat on his lap because he grows freaking cats.
True.
Which I'm angry about that. Like, the way that he just discards the cats immediately.
They're orange cats. They're crazy.
No, but exactly. I'm like, I feel like you could use them as a weapon. I feel like they would probably make a very good weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. They're very, I don't know. If you've never met an orange cat, you need to meet one because they're insane.
And I mean, they're orange cats grown from saber-toothed tiger teeth.
Well, I thought they got the wrong teeth.
They did, because they were supposed to get the, like, dragon teeth, but they got saber-toothed tiger teeth instead. And so then they, like, grew the cats. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but that's okay. I don't know, like, thinking about what comes from the dragon teeth, I'm like, surely these cats have, like, weird weapon powers, and this man could be such a cooler villain if he just had, like, an orange cat on his lap that was also this, like, undead thing that came from a saber-toothed tiger teeth. Like,
it could also just be like Uncle Rick commentary on, I guess, like the lack of accuracy in models of animals, like, because how often are they really going to find like a full set of saber-toothed tiger teeth? You know what I mean? So like possibly using like other animals' teeth to simulate. Yeah.
So like they're not saber-toothed tiger teeth at all, they're just regular cat teeth.
No, they're legitimately cat teeth. Because you gotta make them look nice, right? It's in the freaking Natural History Museum.
That is true.
It's a really cool museum.
I've never been to that museum.
No, me neither. Because we went to DC during the COVID times, and were they even open?
Probably not.
No, none of the Smithsonian museums are open.
Because I know we like walked around and looked at stuff outside mostly. We gotta go back. We gotta go to the Smithsonian.
Oh, I love DC.
Yeah, DC is fun. All right, so before we start growing animals, though, I did want to point out another thing, because Thorn starts, like, filling them in on the quest group. And so he says the, like, people traveling with them are the Satyr, Grover, Underwood. And it's just wild to me that, like, Grover gets first and last named here. Like, they recognize that Grover is somebody that they need to be aware of. Like, Grover is a threat. And that's important to me because, like, Grover gets overlooked so often, but it's just like, yes, the Satyr, Grover Underwood, you know him. We gotta watch that one, kind of,
Is he related to Harry Underwood?
Is this the first time we've seen Grover's last name?
I think so. I don't remember it.
Ooh.
It's either that or he's related to Frank Underwood, and I would much rather him be related to Harry Underwood.
Yeah.
Grover says, Pan, take the wheel. I'm like, hold on. I gotta see if this is the first time we've seen Grover's last name.
It's the first time I remember, so that means it's significant, only because I did not pay attention the first time.
Oh, no, you get Grover's last name in, like, the first chapter.
Of this book or the first book?
Like, the first book. The first book.
I don't remember anything about the first book. Nothing.
Then they also say his last name in, the first chapter of this book. So.
I'd block it out.
They did not say his last name at all in Sea of Monsters, though. Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, so Grover Underwood, possibly related to Carrie Underwood. That's what he should be playing on the reed pipes.
Yes! Jesus Take the Wheel, or, what's another? Before He Cheats. Gotta do that one. Yeah. It's classic.
I don't know, maybe it's just because Thorn spent so much time with Grover, like, at the school, so Grover's the only one whose name, like, Thorn knows. But I don't know, like, if I'm talking to someone who doesn't have any context for, like, who a person is, I'm not gonna just be like, oh, yes. I would give it a little more, like, the way that they kind of describe everyone else. Like, they describe Thalia as, like, the punk one, and then they, like, describe that there are 2 hunters, one wearing a silver circlet, and the general's like, I know that one. You know, I don't know, it's just, like, it's interesting that we first and last name Grover, but no one else. Perhaps I'm reading into things, but what is the point of this podcast if not to read into things? Much to consider. I don't know. So then Luke wants to go after them, but the general says they can't risk him, and also he's not going to let Thorn go after them because Thorn already kind of blew it and didn't complete his mission to, like, capture a child of one of the big 3 gods. He says it's only because of Luke that they managed to salvage the plan at all. And to give some credit to Luke, and that did make me throw up in my mouth just a little bit, his salvaging of the plan is probably the only reason that Annabeth is alive. So, like, shout out to him for that, because I feel like the general probably would have just killed her because he very clearly does not have any respect for her, but, I mean, the tricking her and trapping her and using her to get Artemis, we don't love that. The bar is in Tartarus, and Luke still manages to limbo under it most of the time. I hate him.
Wait, what's the whole deal with his scar being reopened?
It's a good question.
Did they, like, try to torture him or something?
That's a great question. I don't actually know if we know. I know Luke is having a hard time.
Oh, poor baby.
I know. I'm like, okay, you made your choices. I don't know. I don't know that they never really give us details on exactly what happened with the scar, but
Bummer.
yeah. So then we grow some cats. And I'm going to say it again. I think we should have kept the cats. I think they could have been excellent weapons. Orange cats are agents of chaos. Surely these cats have a little bit of spice to them. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, they do get the right teeth from the T-Rex, but they're not T-Rex teeth. They're dragon teeth. And they turn into these, like, creepy skeleton dudes after they water them with blood. I mean, we assume that it's blood. Percy's like, it's a red liquid. I don't think it's Hawaiian Punch. So, like, blood. And so then the general goes to give them a scarf from the hunters. So Percy jumps in and grabs the thing so the skeleton warriors can't get the scent of the hunters. But in his attempt to get away, they manage to get, like, his sleeve. So now we've got skeleton warriors after Percy. Yay! So that's what happened in that chapter. Any thoughts from either of you?
Is it the general that's in, like, a lot of pain?
Yes.
And he's like, do you want some Tylenol?
Yeah, he's got a stiff neck.
Would Tylenol work on, like, immortal people? I'm very confused.
That's a great question.
Tylenol barely works for me. Like, I don't think it's gonna work for this big burly guy who's got, like, joint problems.
Would Tylenol work on the general? That's a great question.
Yeah.
I feel like no.
Like, it's a human drug. Like, would any human drug? Like, would fentanyl kill the general?
Ooh.
That's a good question.
Much to consider there.
Because I need to know, honestly. I'm going to email Rick and
Please do.
listen, buddy. I need to know. What is the magical property of Tylenol? Maybe it works better for immortal people.
True.
Anyway, that was my question for the whole chat. That's the only question I had on the whole chapter.
No, and I love it. It's a great question. Anything else from you, Hannah?
No. I'm trying really hard not to spoil things.
Yeah, it's hard.
Although Mal has done it.
Has she?
She hasn't spoiled, like, big things.
Well,
Okay.
sometimes you make a good prediction and then I give it away that it was a good prediction with my face. So, I'm trying not to do that.
Yeah. Terrible poker face. We should go gamble sometime, Mal. Just because you have the worst poker face I've ever seen.
Oh, God.
I would lose all my money.
That'd be great. I would make a killing. Atlantic City, here we come.
All right, chapter 10. I break a few rocket ships. So, Percy then runs to the Air and Space Museum, takes off the hat, and once again calls it my invisibility cap. Sir.
You should honestly count those as mentions of Annabeth.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they don't count as mentions of Annabeth because, honestly, I should go through this book and I should count times that he mentions Annabeth without saying her name, because I just counted, like, names.
Yeah.
But he should be like, I took off Annabeth's invisibility hat. Like, bring her up again. Come on.
But, like, also so coupley of them for him to be like, my invisibility hat. Like, oh.
What's yours is mine.
Yeah, literally.
Married already.
Like, okay, sir.
Then Percy literally runs into Thalia, Bianca, and Zoe, and Bianca and Zoe get their bows ready immediately, but Grover is, like, ready and excited to see him because they're besties.
Uh-huh.
And Percy says that Luke is here, and I really hate the way it says that the anger in Thalia's eyes just immediately melts. Like, girl, this man poisoned you when you were a tree. This man is currently involved in the kidnapping of Annabeth. If anything, hearing his name should make you angrier.
Oh, yeah.
I have so many thoughts on the Annabeth, Thalia, Luke trio, and the way that Thalia and Annabeth handle their Luke feelings. I will refrain. I don't want to spoil things.
You're like a love triangle?
I mean, I think it depends on how you read it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they both have crushes on him.
I do sometimes kind of read it as like Thalia and Luke kind of had romantic feelings for each other kind of vibes.
Ah.
But like Annabeth is so much younger than them, or at least was. Now she's a little closer to Thalia's age, but I feel like it's not a true love triangle. But there is something with Thalia and Luke there. There's something. Percy also talks about the general, and Zoe says it's impossible for the general to be here, and is like very rattled by Percy's insistence that like this wasn't an illusion.
Interesting.
And Thalia and Zoe fight a little over whether Percy should join them. Thalia's like, Zoe, you're not the boss. And Zoe said Thalia never had any wisdom when it came to boys, and she just could never leave them behind. And this is also still giving messy lesbian breakup in like a you were just experimenting with me kind of way, and then went back to boys.
Good luck, babe. Good luck, babe.
Yes.
Yup.
Chapel Roan's good luck, babe. Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Jealous girlfriends for sure.
And then the Nemean lion shows up. A very cool monster with impenetrable skin. And honestly, fighting in a museum, very cool location. This is our second museum that we're going to trash fighting a monster. We already had the Met. Now we've got the Smithsonian.
Just making their way down the East Coast.
If you've got a museum, I'm like, what's another city on the East Coast? I don't know.
None of the rest matter. Let's be honest with ourselves.
Exactly. If you've got a museum in Charleston, you better look out. That's also on the East Coast.
Charleston is so far south.
All of my coworkers are obsessed with Charleston, and I don't get it.
It's supposed to be really cute, but I've never been.
It doesn't seem like I don't know. I'm not gonna anger any Southern people by saying what I really think.
You can say whatever you want, because even though I technically live in the South and am currently in Texas, I literally only work on the East Coast, so.
I'm a true Northerner. I'll just say that.
So, Nemean lion. Cool fight location. They are like hopping on planes and spaceships, and also generally not getting very far with the lion until Percy has the galaxy brain idea to hit the Nemean lion in the mouth, and so decides to use astronaut ice cream to get it to keep its mouth open. And this is just like one of those classic Percy Jackson moments that lives rent-free in my head, because just what do you mean you were choking the Nemean lion with freeze-dried ice cream? That's nuts.
Have you ever had astronaut food?
Mm-mm.
I think the only freeze-dried food I've had, I got some freeze-dried Skittles earlier this year. They were fine. But also Skittles aren't really a food that has a lot of liquid in them, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I did go to like space camp at NASA as a kid. So,
What the hell?
well, I'm from Houston. NASA is in Houston.
I was literally gonna say that's such a Houston thing to do.
I'm so jealous.
Don't be, that's like the only thing to do.
My dad would love that.
I remember it being fun. Oh, also, the way that Percy says that baseball isn't his game, like, maybe he should be playing baseball, because the aim seems very impressive.
You want to pitch for the Yankees? We suck.
Yeah.
Percy, the Yankees need you.
We just lost 2 out of 3 to Boston.
Boo.
They were 500 coming into the freaking series.
It's all right.
I maybe had a meltdown about it at work. It's possible.
The Astros also suck, so we can suffer together.
Mm.
Let's look at the standings real quick, why don't we? Because I'm like, are we still in last? Because we were for a while. Oh, now we're like almost tied with the Rangers. Okay, slay, love that.
Tied for last, or?
No, excuse me, the Astros are third in the AL West, thank you.
Not a real division.
Oh my god. Okay, Julie, you're like, the Yankees suck. The Yankees have 50 wins, the Astros have 33, so I don't want to hear it.
I'm spoiled. Although Garrett Cole's coming back on Wednesday. Finally. Boy.
Throw back to the good old days when he was on our team.
He also pitched for Pittsburgh. Did you know that?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah. Good old Pittsburgh. I want to go to a Pirates game. Just because the park is really pretty.
All right, so After the freeze-dried astronaut food, Zoe and Bianca finish the job with their arrows, and when the lion dies, it leaves behind a fur coat, which Zoe tells Percy to take. And now he's worried about this being an animal rights violation, but he didn't care when he was overworking Blackjack. I'm feeling very passionate about this. He does eventually take the coat, though, and the skeleton warriors start to catch up to them, so Percy tries to send the group off since the warriors are in fact after him, but Zoe says no. He's now the 5th member of this quest, and they're not going to leave anyone behind. Yeah, so the whole chapter is pretty much just the lion fight scene, so... And we spent half of it talking about baseball, so...
Valid.
Fair.
Alright, so chapter 11 is Grover gets a Lamborghini. So we're being followed by a military helicopter. Grover really hopes that the military is going to shoot it down, and Thalia even prays to her dad for like a miracle lightning bolt, but neither thing happens. And Bianca tells them to turn into a parking lot, which turns out to be a subway entrance. And I have some concerns about them just leaving the camp van in DC. Like, whose job is it going to be to go and get that? Because I know it won't be Percy. He rarely cleans up his own messes. So is this going to turn into some quest for some poor other half-blood who isn't important enough for the main storyline? Like Beckendorf and the quest for the camp van? Maybe we also bring Selena because she's good with the Pegasi. So that's 2 for our van quest. Who's the 3rd? Is this quest even important enough to get a 3rd? Much to consider.
What? They should just further punish Mr. D and have him go pick it up himself.
Make him take a camper with him.
Make him take Percy with him once they get back so they can bond and get over this beef that they have.
I stand by Beckendorf. I stand by that because he is a son of Hephaestus, and if I'm trusting anyone to operate heavy machinery, I pick him. So if he's got to go get a van...
But you want to punish Mr. D a little bit, don't you?
That's true. I just think Beckendorf is cool and he should be allowed to do more things.
Yeah.
Pour one out for all the cool people at camp that we don't get very much of because we're stuck in Percy's POV. Anyway, they hop on the subway, head south, and Bianca hits us with a confusing little statement that she doesn't remember the subway station being there when she and Nico lived in DC as kids. And we don't have time to unpack all of this because the helicopter catches up to them and they have to start switching trains. And, okay, I spent, again, I have way too much time on my hands. I spent way longer than I should have on Google Maps trying to make sense of the, DC public transit system. Because, I've been to DC 3 times, but only used the public transit one of the times. So, I do have some theories, based on what is said in the book and my findings from the map. So, here they are. So, Percy says they're just, crossing the Potomac when they see the helicopter. And so they pull into a mall parking lot on the south bank of the river. So, from the, Air and Space Museum, it kind of feels like there's 2 possible directions that you could go kind of across the river. And I'm going to assume that they wouldn't drive kind of down the mall past all the tourist attractions to the, bridge that takes you straight to the Arlington National Cemetery. It just feels like it wouldn't be the quickest option, but there's a bridge that Maps told me is called the George Mason Bridge that's a little more south, so I assume that's the bridge that they're on, which takes you over near the Pentagon. And then the closest thing I could find to a mall in that general area would be the Fashion Center at Pentagon City, but there's not a parking lot. But there is a metro stop. It's the Pentagon City metro stop, and you can get on the blue or yellow line south towards Alexandria, which is what they say they're doing, so I guess. Also, just side note, there is a Wise Guy Pizza and also a Chase Bank on that corner by the subway stop, and I just thought that was fun, as one Perseus Jackson sometimes calls one Annabeth Chase Wise Girl, and also Chase Bank. I don't know. I was just Percy Jackson references? IRL? What?
I love your delusion.
Anyway. The part that then, starts to not make sense is the fact that they, get on the train, and once the train comes out of underground, then they, see the helicopter again and have to start switching trains, but there's, really the only option would be, to switch from the blue line to the yellow line, or the yellow line back to the blue line, and, they're both going kind of to the same place, and they do kind of fork off and go in their separate locations, towards the end, but they don't connect to anything else. They're still going to end up in the same location, kind of wherever they choose to transfer to. So, the transferring is confusing to me, because, I guess maybe they can take the blue line to, the Amtrak, but then you would need a separate ticket, and I don't know. Then when they end up in the rail yard, Percy's like, we're on the outskirts of DC, so like they don't get very far. I don't know. I'm just like, if someone is listening to this and is like, oh my god, she's an idiot because you have some kind of wild understanding of the DC transit system, please like slide into our DM, send us an email, do something, because I want to understand. I want to understand how they're transferring trains here. Like, what are they doing? How? How is this helping them lose the helicopter is the point.
Have you ever watched those police chases in LA?
Yes.
So this is almost like the perfect way to like get the cops to stop following you. The best way to like get rid of them, and I've only seen it once, is you get into a parking garage.
Yeah.
And you steal a different car. And I was like, they should have done that.
That would have been a very good idea. It feels a little bit like a rookie move to take the camp van all that way.
Like you're telling me not one of them knows how to hotwire a car? Come on.
Oh, surely. And also, like, it feels like the move would probably be to, like, take the camp van to, like, Port Authority, and then you can get on a random, because that's basically a parking garage. And so then you can, like, get on a random bus out of New York somewhere, and, like...
That would have been a good idea.
Unrecognizable, yeah.
Yeah. Why do we know how to get places without being followed?
We live in a surveillance state. It's basic survival.
Yeah.
If the FBI's listening, we're on to you.
We know you're watching us. Don't do that. We're not very interesting.
You're not very interesting. I am a hoot.
Well, depending on who you ask, I'm either very interesting or not interesting at all, because, you know, I did spend a lot of time this week doing Annabeth Math and then also trying to suss out DC Transit and its relationship to the Percy Jackson books. Yeah. So
that sounds like a great way to spend your summer, honestly.
Yeah.
I literally pulled up the Metro map to like follow your discussion so I could understand what you were talking about.
I love it.
And see, okay, it's stuff like this. This is why, like, our friend Sydney always says that if I was obsessed with something useful, like solving crimes, I could be the FBI's most powerful agent. Like, she thinks I could crack the Zodiac killer. Because, like, if I get into something, like, I'm gonna...
Oh, my God.
Unfortunately, I don't have a true crime podcast. I have a Percy Jackson podcast, so...
Although that's a little too white women, even for us.
Yeah, that's true. Let's do Percy Jackson as a true crime podcast.
Let's chronicle all of the crimes that he commits in the books.
It kind of feels like you could do that with the first book, because you know how he's like wanted for a minute?
Yeah.
Should be like, so today we're here talking about the case of Percy Jackson. So he's been kicked out of a lot of schools, and then he and his mom just disappeared on a random street in Long Island. And then he turned up like 2 weeks later. He was spotted with some kids in a diner with this like grown man, and like, I don't know. I've never listened to a true crime podcast. That might be evident. Okay, so they end up in a rail yard, which also I don't know where this is because I couldn't find anything that seemed like a rail yard. But also, once you get out of like major cities, it gets a little harder to kind of look around. So in the rail yard, they run into this like unhoused man who invites them over to his fire. And he reminds them that they're not without friends and offers them a ride on a very convenient automobile carrier train that has just appeared. And when they turn back to thank him, he's gone and he's taken the fire with him. That's weird. So they get to sit in an assortment of fancy cars. Grover gets his titular Lamborghini. Zoe and Bianca are in a Lexus. Thalia's in a Mercedes that she's like hot-wired the radio on. So like canonically, Julie, she can at least do that.
Yeah, come on. If you can get the radio on, you can start the car.
Canonically, Thalia knows how to hotwire a car.
Should have done it. Come on. Critical thinking skills, guys.
Exactly. And so Percy goes to join Thalia in her car to talk about like this monster that they're trying to find and also other little quest things. And Thalia does give us a little bit more information about why San Francisco is so bad for half-bloods, which, you know, Percy couldn't ask Annabeth at the dance because he was scared of being stupid. And it turns out it's because the Mountain of Despair is so near, and it's got a bunch of like Titan magic that attracts monsters. And yet again, Percy asks no follow-up questions because he doesn't want to be an idiot. And it makes me a little sad because, like, back in The Lightning Thief, he asked so many questions. And so then you have to kind of ask yourself, okay, who made him feel stupid for asking all those questions? And I hate to admit it, but, like, it's Annabeth. Like, did Annabeth make him feel like he can't ask questions? Am I admitting that Annabeth might have done something wrong? This is huge.
Poor thing.
I think I figured out the train thing.
Ooh.
Oh, you did, okay.
Okay, so I know for a fact that Union Station, obviously, in DC is where you go and get on the trains, but that's like north of the National Mall.
Yeah.
But if you look on the yellow and blue line, there is a VRE and Amtrak sign next to the King Street Old Town stop. And that is another place that you can get on the Amtrak after, like if you land at like Ronald Reagan or whatever. So that has all the Amtrak lines that go all up and down the East Coast. So there would arguably be a rail yard there.
Okay.
I like it.
Look at us sleuthing.
Rick, you're safe for now, but you're on thin ice.
Sorry, sidetrack. I was really trying to figure it out.
And I'm glad that you did. I will sleep better tonight.
I'm so glad.
I was tossing and turning thinking about this.
I'm sure she was.
Like, God, I gotta understand the DC subway system. I mean, some of the time, there are some things described later, like places that I've literally been, that I'm like, I cannot, like, picture what is, like, Hannah, when we were at the Parthenon, I was like, there's literally a scene that happens here, and I reread it before and after we were at the Parthenon, and I was like, where are they? Like, where are they doing? What is happening? So I think sometimes it's just like,
Yeah.
we're describing based on vibes, because, like, most kids who are reading this would never have been to these places. So it's like,
For
it
sure.
doesn't really matter that it's all the way accurate. And that's also why the arch is several hundred feet from the river, and he would not have realistically been able to make that jump. So,
Yeah.
you know, it is what it is. Once again, Rick Riordan should hire me for all his fact-checking. So, Percy and Thalia in a car. Wow, a boy and a girl parked in a car. Ooh, no.
This is not like the Titanic scene where they're in a car.
No! Julie!
It's like a similar like situation, but total opposite.
I was thinking more like boy and girl in like an old movie parked at the drive-in.
Okay. Or like on a lover's lane.
Yeah.
And then like a serial killer comes after them or something. Speaking of the Zodiac. Like, anyway.
Anyway, in their not romantic at all car, Percy kind of looks at Thalia and kind of goes through all the ways that she's different from Zoe, but also kind of starts to see ways that they're similar and realizes, oh, the hunters tried to recruit Thalia, and that's why she and Zoe have so much beef. Thalia says, yeah, she almost joined the hunters, but it would have meant leaving Luke, and she couldn't do it. And Zoe told Thalia that Luke would let her down one day, and so they had a big fight. And Percy says, wow, well, hard to admit that Zoe was right. And Thalia says, Luke hasn't let me down, and she throws him out of the car. But not before saying, and I quote, Annabeth wanted to join the hunters too. Maybe you should think about why? Thalia really just knows how to go for the jugular. She feels a singular negative emotion and needs everyone around her to also feel bad. It is iconic, but it is not a healthy coping mechanism, bestie.
Kind of relatable though. I have done that in the past. I've regretted it, but I have done that. Like, I'm gonna make this everybody else's problem as well.
Right, exactly. It's like, oh, okay, you want to make me confront my feelings? I'm going to turn this back on you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you should consider how this girl might also want to leave you. So, so then Percy goes to Grover's Lamborghini, and he doesn't want to sleep because he's worried about, like, having dreams. And he gets a surprise visitor, and it's the same guy from the train yard, who tells him not to be afraid of dreams, and also tells him the following haiku. Dreams like a podcast, downloading truth in my ears, they tell me cool stuff. So true, King, I'm loving the love for podcasts.
I hate that line so much.
Do you still love Apollo after that?
Yes, I do, because he's a great older brother.
That is true. He is.
True. That is true. I do respect that aspect.
I really appreciate the way Percy's like, oh, okay, I know this is Apollo because no one else would make a haiku that bad. And Apollo also reveals that, surprise, they're on the Sun Chariot again, which will hopefully get them across most of America before sunset. Apollo also doesn't have a whole lot of useful information. He doesn't know what the monster is. He doesn't know where Artemis is. Doesn't even really know who Annabeth is. And he says that Percy should find Nereus in San Francisco to get information on the monster. So, He's not all that helpful, but he just basically has showed up to tell us, like, I'm a good brother, and so I'm going to help you find my sister.
Slay King.
Then Apollo leaves, and Percy has another dream. This time, it is not about Annabeth, because in it, he is someone else, some other hero, who is being helped by a girl to, like, trick her father in some way and get some prize. She says that her sisters would disown her if they knew she was helping him, and she also gives him a hairpin that turns into Riptide, which, as we know, is Percy's sword. And so Percy wakes up and he pulls the same sword out of his pocket, and he's like, wow, this is the sword from my dream. And also, the girl in my dream, that was Zoe. Dun dun dun! That's the end of that chapter.
Crazy.
Any other thoughts on that one?
I hated in the dream where he just kept calling the girl pretty one. Ugh.
Yeah.
So gross.
Yeah. Also hated that.
Is that part of like the tragic backstory of Riptide that we still haven't learned yet?
It is.
Okay. Interesting. Taking a mental note of that. We'll forget about it later. I just thought of that now. I like didn't put together that until just now.
See, I try when I'm going over my little recaps to not focus on too many of the things that are important, because I'm like, I don't want you to put things together just because of the things that I say, but it's also like, it's hard.
You're giving me no hints at all.
I'm trying not to, but it is hard. So I guess it's time for predictions.
Yeah, these aren't good again this week. I'm gonna apologize in advance. Okay, chapter 12. I go snowboarding with a pig. I'm gonna guess they're in Colorado, and I don't know why he's snowboarding with a pig, but I think they're gonna be in Colorado. Because I don't know where else you would go snowboarding.
New Mexico.
What? Do they have mountains there?
Mm-hmm.
No, but it's also really hot. It's also desert, right?
Yeah, but remember, one will be lost in the land without rain, so
Yep.
we do need a desert. Maybe.
I want them to go to Colorado. Just because I really love Colorado, actually.
I think my life might be better if I lived in Colorado. Renee Rapp. Okay, so...
What is the pig? Why is he snowboarding with the pig? Who is the pig? I really want someone to get turned into a pig. I think that would be funny.
Somebody call up Cersei.
Yes!
You're gonna make not a guinea pig this time, or an actual pig.
They're very smart. They're very smart. And they're omnivores, so they'll eat anything, including human beings.
God.
That's terrifying.
Have you ever seen that Criminal Minds Okay, I don't think you watch Criminal Minds, but there's a Criminal Minds episode where it's like a two-parter. It's like the worst one because it's like so freaky, but like this like brother duo were like killing people and getting rid of the bodies by feeding them to their pigs.
You know what? I think I have seen that.
I actually think I've seen that one too.
It's a horrific episode.
Yeah.
It's like, oh god.
Yeah.
Like,
You're so right.
yeah. It's like seared into my brain. It's like one of like the worst episodes of Criminal Minds. Like it's so freaky. And I think it's based
It is
like
freaky.
like there was like a guy who
No.
did that in Canada.
Ugh.
Yeah. Anyway, enough of the pig talk. Hated that. Don't know why I brought it up. Chapter 13, we visit the junkyard of the gods. Really don't know. I want them to find some new cool weapons that the gods just got rid of or something. I want some cool tech.
Yeah.
Other than Riptide. I'm getting bored of Riptide, honestly. Or I want to learn more about the tragic backstory because they keep hinting at it and giving me nothing.
So true.
But I want more.
'Twas lovely chatting with both of you about these chapters that take place in DC, and thank you for your expertise on the DC subway system, Hannah. And
You're welcome. I tried my best. Thank you for having me
Thanks for coming. Yeah, you have to come back.
and being my personal audiobook while I was driving now.
of course,
Greatly appreciated.
anytime. That brought me a lot of joy.
I'm sure it did.
See you both later.
See ya. Bye.
Bye. Hi, thanks for listening. If you want more from us, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter at DemigodDebutPod. If you liked what you heard, feel free to leave us a review wherever you listen. See you next time for some more discussion about the Titan's Curse. Bye!